Make some noise. Hadithi.
Yes, I am an underdog. The Urban Dictionary defines underdog as one that is expected to lose a struggle or a contest. One that is at a disadvantage. Why would I walk up here, stand in front of you and so boldly and confidently associate myself with being at the bottom of the pecking order? I'd like to think I'm an underdog, and I don't think it's a bad place to be. I'm going to tell you my story, and hopefully by the end of tonight, you might agree. I'm an underdog because I was born a female. Now, before the females in the room throw their headgear at me, by no means am I insinuating that being born a female makes you an underdog. I, however, was born black female in apartheid South Africa. I think that suits the definition of underdog, because already I was expected to lose. Apartheid South Africa didn't take too kindly to black skins. We were thought of as naught. I didn't stand a chance. Not only was I born a black female in apartheid South Africa, but I was also born a black female in apartheid South Africa to a single parent mum. Again, no, I'm not saying that you are an underdog if you were born in a single parent home, like so many South Africans are. All I'm saying is, if there's two parents and one parent, maths tell me two is always better than one. I was born an underdog because I was born a black female in apartheid South Africa to a single parent mum in Eldorado Park. Anyone from Eldos? Again, I'm not saying everyone born in Eldos is an underdog. But what I am saying is, by legislation, we were demarcated, cordoned off, and limited to an area because of the Group Areas Act during apartheid that said colored people must stay there. One of many colored locations. I was expected to lose the battle. I was already at a disadvantage. Do you agree? Maybe. Eldorado Park was, after apartheid was banned, Eldorado Park was known as a previously disadvantaged community. There's that word, disadvantage. You see, I am an underdog. Previously disadvantaged community because not only did it break away from Kliptown, the heart and home of the Freedom Charter, but it was also just an extension of squatter camps. So it was underdeveloped, no homes, no tar roads, bad infrastructure, clinics and schools were parley. I was set up to lose this battle. And then I turned 14 years old, and at school, the only thing that I wanted to do was read. Because being born a black female in apartheid South Africa to a single parent mum in a previously disadvantaged community like Eldorado Park, we were super poor. And to get away from the poverty, I would read. And I started loving to read so much that I excelled at school. And this set me up. At 14 years old, a group of teachers managed to put me into a boarding school, a private boarding school. And for the first time in my life, I had to speak English 24/7, and not just Not just those 2 classes every week. It's the first time I realized I might just be an underdog. Because you don't realize you won until you are set in a position where you understand that you might be different. I had spoken Afrikaans all my life. I think in Afrikaans. I absolutely dream in Afrikaans till this day. So there I was, having to speak English 24/7, and I had to work doubly hard. I excelled, and instead of going to university, I started working immediately after because there were still some siblings and cousins at home that needed looking after. This is what we do in Black South Africa. So I worked and I got an accreditation in public relations, worked for an investor relations company, and my career went uphill. I had great fun. I established myself, and I did well in the corporate world. I think my luck changed when I turned 14 years old and I left Aldo's. I then went on to work in the corporate environment, and from public relations and investor relations, I went into customer care and finally into business analysis. My corporate life was fine. I enjoyed my life until I met a Zulu man. Before that, I thought, I'll never bring a child into this world because, who wants to raise a child in South Africa, Aldo's? I didn't want to do that, but also I was selfish and I was really enjoying my life until I met this guy, and he was so beautiful, I insisted on cloning this person. It was very late in my life that I realized that I wanted a baby, and we struggled. I'm not saying have a child when you're young, but yeah, I waited a little bit too late. We struggled for 2 years. These are the kinds of struggles you want to have. 2 years struggling to have a baby is a good struggle. On the 15th of May 2006, on a Monday morning at 4:30, I gave birth to Imani. Beautiful boy. My beauty, his father's beauty. He was amazingly gorgeous. Imani became my life, my breath, my very reason for living. I titled his birth, My Rebirth. Because just before Imani was born, I weighed a mere 39 kgs as an adult woman. The reason for this is because the Zulu man was so beautiful that I survived on love and fresh air. I'm a very intelligent woman and I understand that food is essential, but I'm telling you now, you can do it. So when I fell pregnant with Imani, my body adjusted itself and I gained all the weight that I needed to give birth to a 3.6 kg, 56 centimeter baby with a big head. For 25 months, 2 years, 1 month, and 3 days, I celebrated every single day of Imani's life. Every month, I celebrated his birthday on the 15th. And when that 25 months was up, my son graduated to heaven. I must be an underdog. He was my rebirth, and I was devastated that he passed on. However, I had to make a quick decision. When you're faced with death so close to home, you shake death's hand. It no longer is something you fear. I had to decide immediately, do I live or do I die? It was very easy to die, to go to where Imani was. But the very next morning, when the sun came up and I realized my son is not here, I decided to live. I decided to live every single day my best life. And I did exactly that. I decided to do that in honor of Imani's memory, to celebrate his life. We continue celebrating his birthday May every year because it is indeed the resurrection of mine. So imagine 2 years later in 2010, during the euphoria of the World Cup, on the 26th of October, after 2, I get a call from the radiologist saying, the sample we took from your breast is breast cancer. When she gave me the news, because I'd lost my son, and I am an underdog, I said, bring it on. 2 years, 5 operations, 6 months of chemo, 300,000 rand later, I kicked cancer's butt. Just as I realized when I went to that private school that I might be an underdog, and I realized when Imani passed on that I might just be strong. That day I realized that I have no other reason to not fight. I had all the opportunity, all the resilience, all the background to fight. I kicked cancer's butt. And I continued doing that 8 years later. So imagine 6 years later, after being diagnosed with breast cancer, here I am in my little corner celebrating Imani's birthday every May, and I get the opportunity to climb Mount Everest. I said, no, climbing Mount Everest is not on my bucket list. Having another baby, now that was on my bucket list. No, I wasn't struggling. I had not met the person that I wanted a baby with, but all I had on my bucket list was one item: have another baby. But remember, the breast cancer that I had was positive, estrogen receptor positive. It means just the mere fact that I was born a black female meant that cancer was feeding off my estrogen cells. I must be an underdog. So when the doctors diagnosed me, they said to me, we will cut off your boobs, you will lose your hair, and you definitely will not have children. So I kicked cancer's butt. Could I have babies? I didn't have a baby at the time when I was offered the position to go to Mount Everest with 4 other breast cancer survivors. But I climbed the mountain, 5,380 meters above sea level. It was there that I also understood, when I looked up to those mountains with snow on them, that a little girl from Aldos can actually make it to the top. For 12 days we walked, 8 hours a day, 8 days up and 4 days down. Out of the 5 people, only 2 of us made it to base camp. The others were flown down due to altitude sickness. I was the tiniest, and I realized I am stronger than a superhero. 18 months after coming down from Mount Everest, I fell pregnant. We couldn't blame the air. I fell pregnant with triplets. That's when I realized being an underdog is an amazing position to be in. Because the only direction you look when you're an underdog is up. You look up to achieving your goals. You look up to surviving the death of a child. You look up, you kick cancer's butt. You look up and you climb Everest. You look up and you conceive triplets naturally at 44 years old. 2 of the babies didn't make it, but they were my guardian angels, because they looked after that little one that's sitting at the back, my miracle child. I gave birth to Imani in 2006, and his name means faith in Hindi and Swahili. I gave birth to Lutendo, which means faith in Chivenda. Because I gave birth to faith, I can never doubt. My name is Henrietta, and I'm definitely, proudly, an underdog.